The Halo Infinite flight test being released and the whole game launching to the public very, very soon, that kind of begs the question of what are the best settings inside of Halo Infinite for PC players as well as controller players. Now, we're going to be breaking down the best visual settings as well as the sensitivity you should be playing it. Now, starting off for controller, it's very, very standard. You click start, and then you go over to controller. Now, for controller, I play on the default setting. I think this is, if you're coming from Call of Duty or any other first-person shooter that I've played on console before, maybe you haven't played Halo recently in the past 5 years because it hasn't really been relevant, I would just stick to standard. You'll probably get used to it very, very quickly. I like to play with vibration off. Hold the zoom. I like to do that. Now, I set my dead zones to absolutely 0 for all of these. I don't keep them at anything else. Essentially, if you have controller sway or drift, this is what you kind of do to try and center it so you don't have controller drift. But I turn these all off, and the sensitivity works a little bit different in this game compared to other Halos, and any other game for that matter on the first-person shooter market. You have look acceleration. I turn this down to 1. Anything that excels anything or relies on something else besides your controller, your raw controller, and the input, I turn everything off. So I play with just the standard sensitivity, turn excel to the minimum of 1, and then I turn this to 7. 5.5 was, I would think, the exact same as 7.7 in Halo Infinite compared to Halo 5. And then reach in that, I would say it's like 5 sensitivity is the same as 7 sensitivity in Halo Infinite. It's a little bit different, but it's kind of it's what you get the same feel for as. So you're going to want to play at probably a higher sensitivity, especially if you're on a console compared to keyboard and mouse players. Because competing against those players, you're going to run into a lot of difficulties, obviously, of turning and trying to get into a gunfight in a 1v1. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, if you're playing on a 3 and 4 sensitivity on Halo Infinite, compared to a PC player in a 1v1, you are going to learn fast. And I'm going to be honest, 7 seems a little high, but it's actually not that hard to control in this game because every single gun in this game is actually very easy. For the zoom sensitivity, I would highly suggest keeping this the same or turning it up. Play on a really, really low sensitivity. I would suggest turning up your, zoom in sensitivity. So essentially, if you're wanting to move around really, really slow and you aim in though, you'll aim very, very quickly when you're scoped into something. Now, this is where you get a little bit weird or different on keyboard and mouse. I just take everything, put it to standard. And if you play games like Valorant or Counter-Strike Global Offensive, I would just stick to that same sensitivity. I play Counter-Strike Global Offensive, have been for 10 years. I play at the standard 2.4 sensitivity with 450 DPI. I'd go off of what you usually play in every other game. If you don't know, stick to the standard and kind of go, and everything else kind of stands. Turn off mouse, excel, everything else. Everything is set to 0.
Is pick a sensitivity where if you go across the entire mouse pad, you're going to end up at the exact same point you started from the beginning. That's my suggestion to that. So once again, we're going to start off at this pillar. Use this for an example. It's kind of swaying because I am using a controller and keyboard at the same time, but we're going to go like this. And boom, we're right there. So that's the sensitivity you probably most likely want to play at. That's probably the most comfortable for a lot of people because you kind of get an idea of, you're playing all fields with a keyboard and mouse at that point. You're playing at long range, you're playing at short range, and it feels really, really comfortable, I think, for most people. If you want to play at a higher sensitivity, you can. I would start out at a lower one, then up it every single day if you're not comfortable with it still. And once you find the sensitivity that you're actually doing pretty good with and you're actually very consistent with, that's the point. Consistency. Consistency is key, especially with aiming. Just stick with it for, I would say, like a week. And if you want to up it, go up it. But don't up it like crazy, and don't up it every single day. Because if you, don't know your sensitivity and you start playing around with that every single day, you're going to be really messed up with aiming. And that was actually something I did back in the day when I started playing Counter-Strike, is I changed my sensitivity every single day. And then I started realizing, back in 2014 that wasn't the best idea for me to actually frag.
For the best visual settings on PC, now I have a 2080 Ti in a 5900X, so I have a pretty beefy PC as of right now. This is all water cooled too, so it has quite the cooling capability and capacity. I played everything pretty much on Ultra. The standard, FOV obviously is it just around 80. I play at max 120. I think it looks the best, feels the best. Play it with full screen as well. I play with the standard 1920 by 1080 frame or resolution scale for that matter. The minimum frame rate, you got to make sure this is unlocked, and then the minimum frame rate is also turned off. There's no minimum and there's no max. If you want to max it, cap it, you can. Everything else, I keep it actually just Ultra. I think it runs the best at Ultra. It looks the best, and that's where I kind of like playing Halo Infinite compared to other games like Halo 3, Halo Reach. It just looks a lot better, and the game feels very, very depth of field. Everything I just keep regular. I think this is a pretty decently optimized game compared to the very first flight test for Infinite. You look at other things, obviously anti-aliasing is something people are probably going to wonder, should I turn this on, should I turn that? because what that does is it make things a little more blurry. You can try turning it off, try turning it on. With my personal opinion, I think it just looks better with it on. You're not really gonna notice too much of a difference with it on low. Now, if you have a really low-end PC, I would highly consider maybe playing with the lower settings on here, maybe some mid-range settings, turn off some of the lighting settings, as well as the anti-aliasing, and then you should be able to play with a decent frame rate. I would say 60 to 80%, 60 to 80 FPS. And then one thing that will really help your frame rate significantly is turning down your FOV, but I would highly suggest sacrificing all your other settings and then keeping your FOV. And also, if you have an RTX card or AMD GPU, I would highly suggest updating your graphics drivers as well. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you slap that like button and stay tuned for more Halo Infinite news, gameplay, questions down below. Leave them down there. I'll be sure to answer them down in the comments or possibly make a video on it. Have a good day, guys. I'm out. Peace.